Driven for justice and winning, Geoffrey Fieger, one of America's most legendary lawyers, has built a multi-million-dollar law firm dedicated to the ideals of his activist lawyer father, Bernard, and the influence of his mother, June, an educator and teachers union organizer. He's won more multi-million-dollar awards than any other lawyer in the country, including his very first trial. Some of his cases include the defense of Dr. Jack Kevorkian, the Jenny Jones Show trial, and the defense of Nathaniel Abraham. He's a fighter that won't back down when he knows he's right. He's a true champion for all those whose rights have been violated. Respected by his friends and feared by his opponents, they all agree he's the most prepared, the most intimidating, and he's charismatic, real charismatic. One of Jeff's best-known clients is Dr. Jack Kevorkian, the man who became known as Dr. Death in the 1990s as a result of his assisting over 100 people to commit suicide. Kevorkian's medical license was revoked, and he eventually went to prison when he represented himself. But Jeff defended Kevorkian in his first 6 murder trials, got him acquitted in every single trial, and became nationally known for Kevorkian and his cause, citing all Americans' right to end their pain and suffering if mentally competent. In 1998, Jeff was the Democratic Party nominee for governor of the state of Michigan. And recently, the Detroit College of Law and Michigan State University named its school for the education of trial lawyers the Geoffrey Fieger Trial Practice Institute. In 1999, Jeff Fieger and Ben Johnson obtained a $25 million jury verdict for the family of Scott Amador against the Jenny Jones Show and Warner Brothers. Geoffrey Fieger is one of the most successful trial lawyers in the country today. He's authored many legal articles and is constantly in demand as an expert for high-profile media trials. He's been the star of the Fox series Power of Attorney and of CBS Radio's program Fieger Time. He appears regularly on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and other networks commenting on various legal issues and cases. Today, the Insider Exclusive takes an inside look at the man, the star lawyer, his beautiful wife of 25 years, Keeney, and his amazing energy and passionate advocacy, which reinforces the truism that his passion is the genesis of his genius. Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from the Fieger Law Firm in Detroit, Michigan. It is my great pleasure to welcome Geoffrey Fieger to the show. Welcome, Jeff.
Well, thank you.
Nice day in Michigan, isn't it?
Well, it's a typical fall day. It's a little rainy, but Michigan and Michigan State will win today.
I ask all great lawyers, and I consider you one of the greatest, why you became a lawyer in the beginning, because you didn't start out that way, did you?
No, and I never really wanted to be a lawyer because my dad was a lawyer, and I guess when your father's a lawyer and my uncle was a lawyer, my mom's brother, you don't want to do what they're doing. I mean, you want to rebel against it, so I didn't have any desire to be a lawyer.
So what did you do in the beginning? You traveled the world a little bit, right?
Yeah, I went to college, went to University of Wisconsin, then to Michigan. I did go to England and worked as a roadie and worked for the Rolling Stones producer Jimmy Miller in England, and lived in Jamaica for a while, and then finally realized that I was delaying adolescence a little too long, so I decided to come back to school at Michigan, and I finished my degrees there.
There's a lot of good lawyers out there. What separates you from many lawyers?
Well, I think it goes back to what you were asking me before. I mean, I never really wanted to be a lawyer, so I practice law as an art. I do what interests me. I was lucky in the sense that I have been able to do what I want to do. Most lawyers don't have that luxury. They have to take the cases that come to them. And of course I did that too in the beginning, but I made this practice I created it in my own image, and I don't want that to sound too biblical or anything.
Right.
It's just, that I had to do something that was fun for me.
Right.
I live here, in other words.
Yeah, it's a beautiful office. You started practicing law, I think, 1979.
That's correct.
And maybe
it's now going on 31 years.
Yeah, about 10, 11, 12 years after that, you started getting into some pretty big, high-profile cases.
No, actually, I won my first $1 million case in 1980. 1 year later, it was extensively covered in the press. I did a 3-part special on CBS on the evening news. It was concerning the misadministration of neuroleptic or antipsychotic drugs. They were using these drugs on all mental hospital patients. They were using them indiscriminately, and they caused a terrible condition called tardive dyskinesia, which caused terrible neuromuscular movements. And I had read about it in law school, and I had convinced my dad to file the case because while I was in law school, and it came up for trial within a year after I graduated, and I won the first $1 million verdict in the country. And actually, so that locally at least created a certain reputation, and maybe even nationally, but it was probably that and the progeny of that, what happened afterwards, which alerted, for instance, Kevorkian to me, which was, I think, what you're referring to, about 12 years later.
Yeah. And how did you select that case? I mean, how did that come to you?
He called me up. You'll see it in a film soon on
with
HBO.
Al Pacino. Yeah.
Al Pacino and Danny Houston is playing me. It was a hot Sunday afternoon in August. My wife and I had come back to the office. It was much different now, but the office still exists where this call came in. Jack and his sister Margot called me on a Sunday afternoon, and I picked up the phone. We have an answering service, but I don't know why I picked up the phone. And Margot was on the phone. She said, "Can we come in and talk to you?" And of course, I had read about Jack and Janet Atkins, who he had assisted. That was his first case. And they came in that Sunday afternoon, and I guess, that's where it began.
What was your first impression when he came in?
Well, Jack was wearing his blue sweater. It was unbearably hot, and he was wearing his fisherman's hat. Margot was wearing her house coat, chiffon house coat, and her wig. They looked like a little Armenian couple, which they were, except they were sister and brother.
Yeah.
And had it not been for... Jack doesn't have common sense. Jack is a wonderful, brilliant man with no common sense.
Right.
He wouldn't have selected me, but he really... They had very little choice at that point. Most attorneys were terribly afraid of what was going on. They were after Jack, clearly.
Yes.
They were afraid what would happen to their practice. They were afraid how they would be perceived in the public. And they wanted to charge Jack.
Yeah.
And I saw this as a very interesting case, a civil rights issue, really. The right of mentally competent, suffering American adults to make decisions without governmental interference. So that was something that, it just seemed obvious to me that that would be a type of case that a lawyer who wants to not make money, but who wants to do something interesting would take. Screw the money.
There's a lot of great causes, and you pick some and you turn away others. Do they correspond to your beliefs? Is that why you choose some causes to pursue?
I don't know if there's a lot of great causes. There's things that are right, things that are just basically right. Like I said, the right of people not to suffer, civil rights, the right of all people, regardless of race or creed, to have access, equal access, the right of gays and lesbians and to have no discrimination based on sexual orientation. Those things are just basically rights. The rights of animals not to be tortured, other living things. Those seem to be like absolutes. I don't know how many great causes there are, but if the right case comes along, the right of children, for instance, not to be treated like adults. I don't know if that's a right, but it should be a recognized fact that children are not adults. Those are the type of cases. If I can see something not only that interests me, but something that challenges not only authority, but challenges prevailing beliefs when I think that the prevailing beliefs are wrong, those type of things interest me.
Yeah. Talk about the challenge with the Jenny Jones case.
Jenny Jones case was, they kept calling it a First Amendment case. I don't think it had anything to do with a First Amendment case. The Jenny Jones case really involved the ability or the right of a money-making operation, a big money-making operation, to put other people's lives in danger unwittingly or unknowingly. It didn't have anything to do with the First Amendment. I'm not challenging the First Amendment. I'm one of the greatest defenders of the First Amendment. God knows. I utilize that and I defend it. And of course, they try to tell me the First Amendment doesn't apply to me. But Jenny Jones was a case in which a large organization, Warner Brothers really, a big money maker, Jenny Jones show, put a innocent, unknowing, unwitting individual, Scott Amador, in harm's way, and he eventually paid for it with his life for ratings. And that type of trickery, that type of ambush, it seemed to me was wrong, and that's why I litigated that case. Of course, the court system is highly political. What people don't realize is that we go through years to get in front of a jury and have a jury of our peers decide cases in the civil arena. The fact of the matter is that corporations, insurance companies, and even government, when you go up the ladder, after cases are won at trial, you go into the appellate court system. The appellate court system is entirely political. And those judges could care less about what juries do. Insurance companies, corporations are given more rights when they have a judgment against them than people who are normal, everyday, poor people are accused of crimes are given in court. You'd think it'd be the other way around because of constitutional protections, but it's not. Everything is turned upside down in this country. The money is what controls.
When you look at your entire career, what 3 verdicts come to your mind that you're the most proudest of?
Well, I'm, of course, proud of all the Kevorkian verdicts. There were, I think, 6 verdicts. There were really 8 trials, but we got the Janet Adkins case dismissed, and we got the case in Ionia dismissed on a mistrial. So there were only 6 actual verdicts. Of course, the Jenny Jones showcase. I'm very proud that of a number of verdicts. I can't pick one and say, you know, there's a top 3 of anything. I've never categorized them. Nathaniel Abraham, even though he was convicted of the lesser charge of second-degree murder, he was sentenced as a juvenile, which was what my intent was always, and to publicize the fact that children shouldn't be treated like adults. And so I'm proud of my involvement there. I'm more proud of the involvement in my cases than the verdicts themselves. I tend to forget about the verdicts. I tend to remember the involvement. Right.
Speaking of your involvement, you use the media a lot in a lot of your cases. What is the value of using the media? Because a lot of lawyers don't do that.
Well, they don't. First of all, they don't know how. Second of all, they're scared. And third of all, they've been somehow taught that it's unseemly. Except people have a terrible negative view of lawyers to begin with. So I don't know why lawyers think it's unseemly to use the media to promote what they're doing. And the fact of the matter is that the media addresses a lot of the issues that lawyers address all the time and can either portray the lawyer's case in a negative way or a positive way. And if you're able to take control of that issue and use the media, and I'm not saying use them in a derogatory or negative fashion, but use it to promote or communicate what you believe or what you're doing, that assists you. Otherwise, if you don't do it, they'll do it for you. I mean, the media exists. The problem today is the media exists in a very abbreviated fashion from what it did. The Fourth Estate basically doesn't exist. It's owned by the corporations. There's very little news media really, truly going on. I mean, it's all this. If you watch CNN, for instance, headline news, you'll see there's about 3 stories, and they don't cover the news.
Speaking of the media, today we have with us a writer who's written a lot about you, Jack Lessenberry. He's going to join us right now. I want to welcome Jack Lessenberry to the show. You've written a lot about Jeff over the years, right?
Yes.
What is your most favorite article that you've written about Jeff or any one of his cases?
Well, you know, I suppose a lot of people would think it was the one I did in Vanity Fair in, I believe, July of 1994, but I did a piece just on him in Detroit Monthly magazine, I think in 1993, which I think captured him. A lot of people really liked that article. It really sort of showed his personality and his sort of lion-like physical characteristics, and it was kind of fun to write.
What makes Jeff tick?
What makes Jeff tick?
And don't tell me his heart.
I would say, really, I think what makes Jeff tick is the thrill of the chase. I think that, you know, the battle is what makes him tick. You know, he likes winning, but once you've won, then it's over. I think he really likes the competitive process, the combat that goes on in court, jousting with his adversaries. I think that's really what gets his adrenaline going.
You know, the amazing thing, Jeff, is that there's a lot of lawyers who could take on causes like you do, and they have to do it at their own expense, because a lot of these cases you take on as contingency cases, and sometimes you lose, and therefore you spend a lot of time and money. You're not afraid of that. You'll fight for what you believe in.
Right, because money isn't important. Self-interest, it can only take you so far. And if self-interest curtails your ability to do what's fun for you or do what's interesting to you because you're always concerned about what might happen, that will prevent you from really taking any steps like that.
Well, you have covered a lot of his trials and tribulations, as well as his, and I really appreciate you being on the program. I'm very pleased to have with us today Joe Golden, the former partner of Bernie Fieger. Welcome to the show. You've had the rare opportunity of watching Jeff grow up in the law.
I have.
Tell us about that experience.
Well, I had the experience of seeing him with his father as he was deciding that he was going to be a lawyer. I know he started out wanting to be an actor, and given that the courtroom is a stage, it was perfect for him to move into the practice.
Actually, my theater degree from the University of Michigan is just a glorified English degree. I was, again, delaying adolescence, and at Michigan I liked girls, smart girls anyway, so I was just taking the courses that were easiest for me. It didn't have anything to do with acting.
Well, you see, from afar we thought he wanted to be an actor. We didn't have the inside skinny here in terms of what he was really doing.
Did you ever really think that he would turn out to be one of America's most outstanding trial attorneys?
Well, I don't think that anybody would know at an early date that anybody was going to rise to the very top, but he sure had all the tools. Yeah, we knew that.
How do you think his dad would view him today?
Well, I've told him many times in our discussions that Bernie Fieger is smiling right now, and he's extremely proud of his son. Bernie was a fighter. He was a civil rights advocate.
Right.
That's why I joined the firm. We always felt that way. And Bernie would have to be immensely proud of what he's done.
Well, I want to thank you very much for spending some time and sharing with us. Great input into Jeff. Thank you very much. I want to welcome another attorney who's known Jeff for a long time, Leonard Hyman. You actually knew Bernie, his dad.
I knew his father very well. As a matter of fact, the location we're at right now, on 10 Mile Road, Geoffrey's father had an office here. It was like a house.
Yes.
And my office was further east on 10 Mile Road, and I used to interact with Bernie Fieger on a frequent basis. We were both young, struggling lawyers at the time. He was representing a teachers' union association, and he was an aggressive, hard-working lawyer that never let up.
You've watched Jeff mature over the years as a lawyer.
As a lawyer and as a human being.
As a human, and how would you analyze that? How would you evaluate that?
Well, this is like a. Of course, you know, Geoffrey didn't come from wealth. You know.
Yeah.
His father was a hard-working lawyer. It's almost like the American dream. Here's a guy whose father was a lawyer, They didn't have much. They struggled in the 50s and the 60s. It was difficult. And Geoffrey, in that atmosphere, he established the foundations to become a successful man. This is the American story, really.
Right.
There's a young lawyer from nowhere, suddenly catapults himself into the scene and acquires a reputation as really the best accomplished trial lawyer in the Midwest.
In the nation, right?
Listen, I'm like Muhammad Ali. I don't think Muhammad Ali called himself the greatest because he thought he was the greatest. I think it was a challenge for Muhammad Ali to live up to. So my challenge has always been to be the very, very best at what I do. Not because I want somebody to falsely think, gee, he's great, and rest on my laurels. Because I don't. My dad used to say I'd win $1 million case, come back, he'd say, well, what have you done for me this afternoon?
Right.
Okay, and in my heart, I believe that somehow, maybe I really don't have the talent people say that I do, so I've got to prove it to myself. But that's what makes. If you ask me what drives me, what influences me, what makes me get up in the morning, that's it. Because I really don't think I've accomplished that much in my own mind, and I'm certainly not about to retire or rest my
Geoffrey's
laurels.
being very modest.
Yeah. I agree with you, because every day's a new day, isn't it?
Yeah, and I want to
New
be
challenge.
around. And we happen to be in a profession, Leonard and I. He's 87 years old. I want to be 87 years old and as good health in him as Leonard, with his all my mental faculties like Leonard, and still love what I'm doing. And there is a public perception also, which is unique in the law. As the public believes, and I don't believe this is necessarily wrong, it may be right, that lawyers, as we age, get better. People don't want real old surgeons. They don't want real old professionals. They like old lawyers. And because you tend to get a little wisdom as you get older. Some people do.
Very little.
I'm very pleased to have with us today Jeff's wife, Keeney. Welcome to the show. Married 26 years, huh?
Going on 27.
What's it like being married to him?
Don't tell them the truth.
Seriously,
Lie.
what's it like being married to him?
Lie.
Okay. It's, it's like a double-edged sword. There's a lot of good things, but there's also a lot of bad things. I mean, it's exciting, interesting, and on the other hand, he's so busy that, we don't see a lot of him. So.
She probably sees me too much.
When you say we don't see a lot of them, that's you and the 3 kids, right?
Me and the 3 kids.
And 3 young children, right?
2, 6, and 8.
Wow, a 2-year-old, huh?
We're busy.
And an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old. Well, I'll be 100 when they graduate from high school.
When you look at all the success that your husband has had, what are some of the things that stand out in your mind the most that you like about him personally?
Well, he's a hard worker.
You need to keep up that lifestyle.
That's an understatement. But, he's passionate about his work.
Yeah.
And I met him when he was just graduating from law school. So, I saw how he became successful. It was through hard work and, perseverance and just never giving up and trying to be the best at what he does. I mean, he truly believes that. He tells our kids, too, no matter what you do, you want to be the best at what you do.
Yeah.
And
being passionate, like, for example, representing
Dr.
Jack
Kevorkian.
Kevorkian. In other cases that put him in the limelight a lot. Was there ever a time when you thought, wow, that's too dangerous, maybe we shouldn't be doing that? And did you have disagreements about that?
Not really.
Tell the
Well,
truth.
that's not. We didn't have disagreements about who I represented.
Yeah.
But Keeney would give me advice: tone it down. Tone it down.
About how you.
Right, about how I presented. She never disagreed with any of the cases,
no.
but she did give me advice about how I could be perceived better. Because a lot of these, as you're growing, and I was very strident, and I was very, almost too angry. And Keeney would say, and to her credit, she was right, and I was wrong. I did appear too angry. I did appear too strident. I could have more effectively communicated what I was doing, being kinder and gentler. And Keeney would always tell me that. I wouldn't listen to her at first because I thought I was doing the right thing. It took a while to realize she was right and I was wrong.
Do you listen now?
More, absolutely. I try to. She's she's more wise than I am.
You know, obviously being married to a very passionate man, passionate advocate, you must have your own passions too. I mean, it must rub off. So what are some of your great passions in life today?
Well,
Children.
the children, they take up, like, you know, more time than I have. And I'm enjoying it, you know. We were late bloomers when it came to having a family. We were both busy with our careers. And, you know, it turned out that we woke up one day and we said, hey, if we don't have kids now, we're never going to do it. So, and we put it off, and now we can enjoy it. You know, we've done all the other things we wanted to do for ourselves, basically, and now we can focus on the kids.
In the beginning, and you've been married, what, 26 years, right? Mm-hmm. In the beginning, there's a lot of sacrifice. You know, Jeff is working 24/7. He's he's passionate about his causes. What advice would you give to young couples today who are starting out and they're passionate about their careers? Mm-hmm. How do they make it work?
You have to think of the long term. You know, you can't think of, you know, having everything immediately. That's what we did. We postponed being parents so that we could work and have a good foundation, mm-hmm. and get our careers going well. And you just have to be patient and stick with it through the rough times.
I would say you need somebody like Keeney to modify your life, because I'm much more mercurial. Yeah. She's a much more stabilizing influence in my life. Without her, I would be like some ship without a rudder on a stormy ocean.
I'm sure you have found that the best thing you'll ever achieve in this life is raising those kids.
Yeah, Keeney and the kids.
Yeah.
Keeney first, the kids second, only because without Keeney I couldn't have ever had the children.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank both of you for being on the program. Thank you for joining us. You can get more information about our guests and the issues at www.insiderexclusive.tv. Thank you.